Hello, my name is Karen Vasquez and I am the owner of Cakes by Karen. I teach the course Ruffles, Cakes and Cupcakes on cakemade.com. Please join me in the following free tutorial. In it, I'm going to show you how to make different techniques on ruffles, from cupcakes all the way to tier cakes. In this video, I'm going to be showing you a variety of different types of ruffles that you can make using different types of tips. When you're working with buttercream, if you've seen those cakes out there, there are different types of ruffles. You have your upward ruffles, downward ruffles. You have most of them horizontal, some of them are going up vertically. You want to make sure you're always holding your tip right. I always like to hold the tip whenever I'm using 104 or a 103 as I move along through them. Always keep your tip with the open part up and the closed part down. This is the part that will be touching or will be closer to your cake or to your cupcake, and then this bottom part is what will give your create that ruffle or frill effect, is what will curl up more. Whenever you're working on a cake, just make sure you're touching the wider part of your tip is touching lightly the cake. Sometimes, you know, in the heat of decorating a cake, you can tend to forget those little tips, and those are the ones that come handy. If you push too much onto your cake, you're gonna find yourself dragging cake crumbs. So you wanna avoid that. So for the purpose of showing you the really cool ruffles, just hold your bag always secure in place, close off that back part of it. Place your fingers where you're more comfortable, and you can apply that that squeeze that your back will need to release the icing. And for the purpose of the ruffles, we're gonna hold everything at a 45-degree angle. We're gonna turn this around just because it's gonna show better this color against the brown part of the board. But this is a 104 Wilton tip. Kind of lightly drag, and then you're gonna go almost creating an S and overlapping. I'll show you when I turn the board around what it looks like. Try to be consistent and apply the same amount of pressure. So if this were a cupcake, it would land like that. So if you were to want to do these ruffles in a vertical way on a cake, you would, I'm just going to move things around a little so that you guys can see it. Get some stuff out of the way. Let's pretend this practice board is your cake. Your cake would be standing at a 1-degree angle. Your piping bag is going to be you're going to move it up in the same way. Make sure, just as a reminder, always the open part goes touching the cake lightly, and then the closed part is what's going to create that ruffle. So you want to start at the bottom and kind of move up like that. Make sure you keep like the same width. And I am lightly touching the cake or the board. If this were to be a real cake, just as a reminder, you want to make sure you do not push too hard so that you end up removing or bringing in the crumbs of your cake. So now that we've tried 2 ways of doing ruffles with this tip, I'm just going to change it to 103, which is a smaller tip of the same petal family. But at 103, the only difference between this one and the previous one is that it's shorter and it's perhaps a little bit closer at the top, definitely closer at the bottom. But like I said, this one's normally used to make flowers, petals on buttercream flowers. For the purpose of the ruffles, it just comes out very handy. Place your tip right above your coupler and then close with your coupler ring. Make sure it's not sideways. It can happen. And we're going to, again, just hold it like at a 45-degree angle. And then it's almost like a soft overlapping. It's almost like doing an S shape or like a wave. And then you see how those ruffles are slightly smaller than the ones you saw before. Because the tip is smaller as well, they tend to go up a little bit more versus so vertical. I'm gonna change this one, and then we are moving from like more of the basic tips all the way up to the more complicated tips. This one is a tip Wilton 70. It's used, or also known as a leaf tip, but it's also used to make ruffles. So again, place your tip, make sure it's straight, close it with your coupler ring. You place your tip down, and then this one I like a lot because it gives you that beautiful ruffle. You can use it on cakes vertically. If you want to add another touch, if you're doing something vintagey, you can place pearls right in the center and it would look super cute. So this is a leaf tip 70 Wilton that we've converted from a leaf type onto a ruffle or frill type. Now I'm going to unscrew this one and move on to a little bit of a more advanced tip, which would be a 050 PME. This one has like a little tooth right there. It's a really fun tip to use. The indentation that you see right in the middle will create almost like an added line onto your ruffle, almost like a seam. It is a tip though that because it's only open at the top but super close at the bottom, you have to be very careful. If you have not properly mixed your icing, it is a tip that can get clogged up very easily. So you're gonna hold it 45-degree angle, and then it's almost like doing an S shape. My hand is moving lightly up and down. If I were to be imagining an S, a tight S, it would be like tight S or like an infinity sign. You can kind of control how roughly you want this icing to come out, depending as to how close you keep the tip or how much icing and pressure and how much you kind of push your tip to the side. So if I wanted it really roughly, I could go and kind of apply a lot of pressure. See how those ruffles are almost on top of each other. If I wanted it with a little bit more space, and I would just less pressure and would move my hand up and down just a little bit more. So you can see that's a relaxed, super tight ruffle and then relaxed again. So moving on to our next tip, we have an Ateco tip number 040. The cool part about this tip is extra wide, then it goes super thin, and it almost has like squiggly indentation at the bottom. Some of these tips, you want to make sure that before you purchase them, you look at the little cardboard where they come in. Sometimes they say they're for right-handed people. Sometimes they say they're for left-handed people. I'm only passing the knowledge along because I ended up purchasing some left-handed ones and I'm right-handed. So obviously they did not work for me. So make sure that if a tip does come with that information, that you do not purchase the wrong kind of tip for your preference. So just keep it at a 45-degree angle. And then again, you can control how much of a ruffle you want on it. I love the sound of buttercream coming out, especially when there are no bubbles in it. And that's exactly what your ruffle would look like. It's definitely a longer ruffle, more fabric-like. It's a soft ruffle. So it is definitely a good one to use on cupcakes, especially those cupcakes that are kind of up and rounded at the top. So those are some of the most popular ruffles you can pipe on cupcakes or a cake. For more in-depth details as to how to do and accomplish other ruffles, please visit my course, Vintage Ruffles, Cakes and Cupcakes on cakemade.com.